Hello everyone, I'm Jesus and welcome to the next episode of the Road to Old School MTG. So I have quite a video to do here, so a lot of different things. The main topic of this video will be to update on a few recent tournaments that I participated in, and I want to give a breakdown of the results that I had. Let me flip this around. And because I had promised from previous videos that I would give an update, so that's part of it. And I just attended just yesterday the Alpha Beta 40 World Championship at Dave's Time Warp in Cedar Grove, New Jersey. I attended, but I did not participate because I can count the amount of Alpha and Beta cards that I own in one hand. So there was also a side event, Boat Bash, that was an Atlantic tournament. So I took my Swedish legal Armageddon deck to that tournament. I've been using that deck in preparation for this New Year's 2025 LobsterCon. I'm still not sure if I will be attending, but nonetheless I still want to practice and get better. So there's that to cover as well, and I have some of the goodies that I got from there, which I want to highlight as well, right? So a lot of different things for today. And so let's start with just the things that you see here. So over here in this corner, I have some Inquest magazines that I've been collecting on and off here. I loved Inquest magazine back in the day. This was the magazine that I would gravitate towards, and I would actually buy these magazines and read them. So I've made myself given myself the goal to collect the first 20 of these, because that's the time range that I was collecting these and reading these magazines from, and it's a nice even number, right? So once I get the first 20, I may expand that a bit more. We'll see. Right now I have 7, I believe. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Oh, actually 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 of them. So then this one in here will be number 7. I'm going to open up this package. This is actually from a friend, Jonathan. I had mentioned to him I collect these Inquests, and he knew it was missing number 1. He was kind enough to buy for me the number 1 magazine. So I will be putting it in as part of my collection here. I really appreciate that. So I'll be including that one. So a bit more to go before getting that 20, but number 1 is the most coveted one, right? So it's a pretty big deal to get that one. So I'll be opening that one up in a bit. So the swag here is all from the tournament I attended yesterday, the Alpha Beta 40 tournament. Here's the sticker for it. So I only got this swag because it was extra, right? Because as I said, I did not participate, I just attended because I wanted to attend the side event, which was an Atlantic event. It was just 3 rounds. It all depended on how many people were there. Actually ended up being a bit over 10 people, 11, 12 maybe. So not so bad, considering there was a huge main event for the Alpha Beta 40. 38 players ended up participating in that, and the games were recorded. I recorded actually 5 rounds, all 5 rounds. And there is also a stream of the event as well, which I'll be highlighting as well in future videos as I post my Alpha Beta 40 videos as well. For those, I did not participate, like I said, so it's just me catching games of other people playing. But there was some extra swag at the end, so pretty cool. So here we have the official Deckmaster AB40 patch, the sticker. There's also a pin, but there was no extra of those. And then this is a pretty cool extra little thing here that will take you back in time. So Pogs, so official Deckmaster AB40 2025 Pog sheet with 6 Pogs, Magic related of course. So pretty cool. And there's apparently a actual rules for Pugmaster. by Nick DC. So I'll see if I can find more info on that and then maybe post it with this video. But that's the swag here from that event. This is what I got from the event as well. There was a charity raffle which I helped to organize, at least that part of the event. This was actually a prize from the event. I bought some tickets and lucky me, I ended up winning this one, right? So pretty cool altars, one from Elves of Deep Shadow and one from Spitting Slug, right? So I think the Elves from Deep Shadow one is the one I would actually end up using more often. I rarely use Spitting Slug, but then again, I did want to start playing mono green weenie in old school. If I do, then this one is definitely going in. Maybe even the Elves of Deep Shadow, because a lot of the mono green is not really mono green. It's mono green with a splash of black, so you might see those elves in there. So those are nice altars to my collection. This is the card from the side event, and I ended up getting second place, right? So it's just 3 rounds. I won the first 2-0, and then I lost the last one 0-2. I lost against Arabian Aggro, right? And that's one of the decks I feared. So I definitely need to consider adding something specifically against that deck. But the main thing about sideboards is you also want the cards to kind of be multi-purpose and not just for one thing, although you may have a goal of choosing cards to target a specific deck, but you also want it to also be able to hit other kinds of decks as well, right? So initially I'm thinking City in a Bottle, which I do not own, but then I would have to alter my deck, my current deck, a bit more, so that if I do bring in the cities, it wouldn't affect me, or at least it would marginally affect me. We'll see. Right, so here I'm just taking out a Pixies from my current deck, Swedish deck, and I'm putting this one in because I'm trying to put in more altered cards and signed cards into my main deck. It's just to make it a bit more personalized, right? So there's the swap there, and that's that for these cards. Let me open this up here. So pretty excited for this. I see it. Woohoo. Yep, that's number 1. Pretty good condition as well. Issue number 1, Inquest magazine. If I'm not mistaken, the art is from Anson Maddox. If I'm not mistaken, I see some kind of signature here. It's a little hard to see. Maybe I'm mistaken. This kind of doesn't look like Anson's artwork, to be honest. But I don't know. But either way, I really like that. Pretty iconic artwork nonetheless. Looks really cool. The game that is advertising for this, for the cover, Rage. I think it's Rage. We'll see. Yeah, Rage. That's this game was very heavily advertised during that time. I would see ads for it all the time. So pretty cool. And then just nostalgia, right? Just looking at all those bygone games. Oh, this is from the Magic comic books, which I also collect, but also here and there, right? Similar to Inquest. I have, in fact, I have this one as well. The actual comic. So yeah, on Facebook I joined a Dead TCG card game group, and then there's so many extra games that I never even saw any ads for. But this era of Magic where I would buy these Inquest magazines, it was only maybe like a couple years only anyway, and this Inquest went on for many more years after that, right? So it could have been after that. But pretty cool Wonder what this game is. Oh, is this Rage? I see they're the vampires. Okay, this is one's for vampires, but what kind of vampires? Still curious about which one is this. Alright. I'll actually take a read on it later in time. But this is cool to add now to my collection. So thank you, Jonathan, for that. So that's the mail opening / swag section of the video. Now going into the tournament recap. So first of all, I'm going to go into my 97 Worlds update. There was a tournament actually a week ago. I just finally am getting some time to go over it. So let me share screen on that. So this is actually the other deck I'm going to show, but this is the deck I took for the 97 Worlds event. This is the second 97 Worlds event that has been hosted by Sisters of the Flame. From the previous video to this version, I've made some changes, but this version here is the one I took, right? So you'll see, first of all, walls, because I was afraid of a lot of weenies. That this format is populated by a lot of weenie decks or a lot of weenie creatures. So I have Tinder Wall to give me some defense as well as Wall of Roots, but they also give me mana so I can still ramp into bigger creatures. I got the 4 monkeys, so 4 Tinder Walls, 4 Wall of Roots. So here I updated to 4 Stampeding Wildebeest. I don't think I had any. I've been bouncing back and forth between them. The last versions had none, and now I put all 4. I got my Korean Rangers. Oh, partially also the walls is because I wanted to put in, I knew I was going to put in pirate classes in the sideboard, right? So I have 3 in the sideboard. I might even bump that up to 4, because basically when the pirate classes came in, I would take out Korean Rangers. I would still maybe keep 1 or 2 because they are very strong for this deck, but those pirate classes were very important. So I have, of course, the Maro, because this is basically a Maro Geddon deck. I want to cast Maro, and as I'm casting him or sending him up, I want to have a lot of cards in my hand, and I achieved that through various means, right? So Undiscovered Paradise will keep returning back. Korean Ranger will keep returning my forest back to my hand. Stampeding Wildebeest will return other creatures up to my hand. So there's a lot of things that bounce back up. Bull Elephants will bounce 2 4s up to my hand. So I do have I did have a large hand size for most of the games, but not all, right? And then when I did not, then, or maybe I had 4, but then I had to cast that Maro, which dropped them down to 3, and then he would get incinerated, right? So I rarely had like no cards, or maybe 1 or 2, but I did quite often have 3 or 4, right? And then that wasn't enough. I really have to have 5 and above for this deck to be optimized. But then some other issues arose, which I'll discuss. So I have the 3 Stormbinds that were really strong, Imperial Armor 2, which proved to be worthless really. Firestorm is still solid, but so the issue that it was 4 rounds, I ended up going 2-2, and a recurrent issue was that I would run out of mana, right? Since I'm bouncing my own lands, Undiscovered Paradise keeps on returning up, Bull Elephants keep returning these, Korean Rangers I keep bouncing up my forest, and I have 13 4s, right, out of 23 lands total, right? So sometimes I did not have the 2 4s available for Bull Elephants, and then he would just sit in my hand. The Gemstone Mines, I would need to cast things, but then after 3 tries they're dead, so it was a mistake to put the Gemstone Mines there. Undiscovered Paradises, they're still fine, but the main thing was that between the Gemstone Mines dying and the Undiscovered Paradises returning up to my hand, plus a lot of the decks did have land kill, right? So a lot of them are black heavy, and black heavy decks would very commonly have some kind of land kills, right? So there was ice quakes, choking sands, right? So there's quite a bit of land kill to choose from. So I was getting my lands were getting killed. I also saw stone range, just straight up stone range as well. There's pillage, right? So there's a lot of land kill. So then I have to consider that in my updated version, which I do have, but I did not. That is just an updated version. I do not have any actual play experience with it. I just want to show you what I originally brought to the tournament. City of Solitudes, but I did put them in one time. I think they didn't really do much. Emerald Charm, but I think I might just go with Disenchants in the future. The monkeys. So I hit like Neveneros this when I play against mono black or like black heavy necro decks. So it's not like it didn't do anything. I wouldn't maybe necessarily play 4 next time, maybe 3 or maybe just 2, and just use the disenchants that I may be swapping from the Emerald Charms. So there's still some leeway there. The Imperial Armor is just, it was too hard. Like I said, the Gemstones Mine would die. The Korean Rangers are a big target, and this version used to have 4 Bursts of Paradise, but I took him out since I wanted to Pyroclast him, and I wanted to negate the self damage I would be dealing to myself. But then that I lost on colored mana from that way, and it just made the Imperial Armors much harder to cast. Even just Stormbind, just getting either red or white was pretty tricky a lot of times. A lot of times the Gemstones Mine, I just used it for green because I just needed more mana to cast other things. So, like I said, 2-2, but no matter what, it was very fun. I really do enjoy this deck. Now let me show you my anticipated changes. So in general, I do like the deck. I don't think there's much differences between the creatures. Let's see, 4 Bull Elephants, 2 Landlord Behemoths, which I had. I still had Maros, Korean Rangers. Oh yes, so actually the biggest change here is River Boas. Basically, I didn't have any early threats, right? So I have the Wall of Roots and Tinder Walls. They're just defensive. They don't add any offense. So I needed to put something early that was both offensive and defensive, and which wouldn't die to my Pyroclasm, right? With River Boas being regenerators, I could still Pyroclasm and they could still do their thing. Plus, of course, that Island Walk is very clutch because the winner of the tournament ended up being a mono blue or either mainly blue but blue-white control deck, right? So I think some kind of Island Walking may be useful. I think that deck had that Alliances land that makes soldier tokens, so I forget the name at the moment, and that was, if I'm not mistaken, I didn't face that deck, right? But it seemed like that was the win condition, or at least one of the win conditions. I did face a different control deck and I won, but it was definitely a pretty tricky game. But basically I had way more threats than he had counter spells. I don't think that version had any Armageddons, which was very important to me. And then I did cast that Armageddon game 1, I believe, maybe even game 2, but I know game 1 it was devastating. I won because of it. And then I did have the Stormbind, which together with the creatures, and then that Stormbind was out, I just won that way, right? So the Stormbinds are very solid. Sometimes I do think there's a bit redundant keeping the Stormbinds with the Pyroclasms. Time will tell as I get more experience with this, but honestly I really love this format. I've stopped playing Alliances and Mirage block formats because this basically hits both, plus with the addition of 5th edition and Homelands, and it's all together, right, as opposed to being separated by the blocks. So it's just the best of both of them with extras on top, right? So it feels way more dynamic to me. I really like this format. Although we'll be switching formats in the future, right? So I'll see. This might be something that does not get played much, if at all, in the future. If anything, maybe I can take the reins and kind of create a Discord channel for it. We'll see. But I really do enjoy this format. Okay, so this is, as I mentioned, the updated version, just to compare it back and forth. So the Imperial armors are gone. It's just it was too hard to cast, and a lot of times it's just wasn't effective anyway. Without the birds, the nice thing about the birds was, of course, it made the Imperial armors easier to cast, but I could put them on the bird. The birds are flying, so that's a great way to get some extra damage. So it's just, a lot of times I just would have walls, and then, that's not worthy of me putting the Imperial armor on. It was not. Plus, with the Stampeding Wildebeest, I might be returning some creatures up to my hand anyway, and then with Imperial armor, I would lose the Imperial armor, right? So it's too unstable. So those are out, and I wanted to just make it easier on me to be able to cast the cards I needed. For this version, I took out the Firestorm. I may still add it, right? Because that was my 61th card in this deck. Here I'm down to 60, so I might still splash for it. We'll see. But now this version, in terms of the lands, first of all, I bumped it up to 24 lands. Like I said, there's so much land kill. Plus, I myself do self-harm with my own lands from the bouncing effects I have. I just need to have more lands being played, and they cannot be dying on me. So I took out all Gemstone Mines. Now I put in a mix of 3 Brushlands and 3 Carplusian Forests. I did take out I had 2 City of Brasses as well, so I took those out. I was just doing too much harm to myself. Like I said, this version now, this is the 3rd version, is untested, so I'll see if I can still get some games in, and I'll test this new version. But it does seem better. I do now have 14 forests, the other one had 13, plus the lands, other than, of course, Undiscovered Paradise, but the other lands do stick around. And I can control how I get pinged from the Ice Age lands, from the Pain lands. Imperial armors are gone. It's just too hard to cast. It just makes the creature I cast it on way too. It becomes a target. There's Mana Wars. The black creature that destroys a non-black creature. So there's a lot of ways to kill creature, right? Of course, Swords to Plowshares as well, which now I have 4 in the sideboard. I did have 4 in the sideboard, the other one as well, which I maintain. Oh yeah, here I see 4 Pyroclasms now. Like I said, now I want this to be a main component. So I don't know if I should still keep 3 Stormbinds. I may drop it down to 2, but I wouldn't drop it down to 1. It's still very clutch, very strong card. So here I just put in, took out that Emerald Charms and just put in straight up 3 disenchants. I put in an extra Armageddon just against control, and just a good card. 3 Pyroclasms, seems Pyroblast. So this seems like a good update, and I still kept a good chunk of the creatures. I mainly Octavius I removed 1. Stampeding Beast I removed 2, and then I added 1 extra one, which is now that accounts for the 4 River Balls, right? So I do feel this one is going to be stronger. Gives me both an offensive and defensive threat early on, which was something that was an issue for me. So I had the walls, of course, but as I'm trying to get mana from the Wall of Roots, and the Tinder Wall is just a one-time mana thing, I would eventually, they get low enough, and now they get killed. So I just needed something that can be not just blocker, right, but offensive. I could still use it to block, of course, but it will do 2 damage as it's blocking. that may be definitely just enough to kill the creature that it's blocking, and so forth, things like that. Alright, so this is pretty much it here for this one. So this is here now, if the glare can be adjusted. Alright, so this is the actual new version. So my brush lands for Undiscovered Paradises, my 14 forests, 3 Stormbinds, Queen Rangers, Turn the Walls, Wall of Roots, the River Boas, 3 Utabis, 4 Bull Elephants. The Bull Elephants I'll see, I might drop it down to 3, maybe even 2. Same thing with this Wildebeest. We'll see if this bounce back ability is still worth it. Maros are still definitely keeping, but humans were pretty solid. Although I don't anticipate me going beyond 2, but they are definitely very good. And then for the sideboard here, let's see if I have the full, I believe I have this full deck already. 3 Parablasts, 4 Paraclasms, 4 Swords, and 3 Disenchants. Let's see, 3, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. Oh, and the Armageddon, which I used Armageddon in my Bantamgeddon deck, so it gets a lot of use, it goes back and forth. Alright, so then that's the update on this 97 Worlds deck. I really love the format. And hopefully it's not just a 1 or 2 off, but something that stays in our rotation. So now here is my Bantamgeddon deck, right? So it's really Ernamgeddon, but since I'm changing things up for the LobsterCon tournament, which is Swedish, and there's no mana burn there, so I bumped this to 4 Suchis, and since I want to be resistant to City in a Bottle, I may, like I said, I may even put in City in the Bottles myself. I want to be resistant to that, so I actually ended up taking all the Ernams out. So this is more of a Suchigeddon or Bantamgeddon, so I might just use the term Bantamgeddon exclusively from now on. So yeah, I will, now let me talk about this deck. This is now the new, let me put it over here, the new Pixies that I just got from that tournament. Now going into this deck, so this just so it's easier to look through. As you see, I had previous versions had 2 Dibs and 2 Ernams, and only 2 Suchis. But now with the switch to 4 Suchis, I've taken out all the Ernams, and I figure I needed to bump up the 3 casting cost slot, so I bumped it up to 4 Dibs. But even that may be a bit too much, we'll see. The main reason I keep 4 is because I do have 4 Spiritlinks in the sideboard. But with my perhaps anticipated move of adding the City in the Bottles, honestly that's going to be a bit of a big investment. They're like 200 at least each, and I've definitely kicked the can on that because I didn't want to spend so much money on something that's 100% just a sideboard card. But it is Arabian Aggro is more seen in Swedish, and City in a Bottle of course used to be the death of me in previous versions of this deck, where I used to have 4 City of Brasses, 4 Dibs, 4 Ernams, and Library of Alexandria. So I've taken all the City of Brasses, I took out the Library of Alexandria, and I trimmed down on the Arabian Nights creatures. Only had 3 and 3 each of Ernams and Dibs from previous versions. Now I've trimmed even more with really the only Arabian Night card being the 4 Dibs, which I might still trim down to 3 and then something else, we'll see. This deck is at 61, right? So I may just take out the dip and then just leave it at 60, we'll see. So I definitely like the Side Blast, more offensive. I won a game because of it already during that yesterday's tournament. Like I said, I won 2-1, and I lost to Arabian Aggro. It was not the first game I lost a bit decisively. I was kind of mana screwed. I didn't have green, I believe, for most of the game, and I had the pixies out, or one of those colors. I'm not sure if it was green or white, and I didn't record these because I was recording the alpha beta of 40 matches. But in general, the lands have been decent, right? So I think it's just bad luck on that, from that end. The second game was definitely more competitive. It was a tighter game. I still ended up losing though. I put in Spurlings and Swords. I thought about the Wrath of Gods, but then with me also having a lot of creatures, that Wrath of God is the ones I may anticipate. Either I switch to Sitting in the Bottles like I mentioned, or I may just put in 2 red cards. Like it could either be Falling Star is probably the best one, because I was also considering, well, it could be just an Expo, like a Fireball, but I want something that's quick and that's not so mana heavy dependent, especially if I have so many targets. So either Earthquakes or Falling Star, or maybe one of each, we'll see. I think I only have one actual Falling Star, so I may have to get one more. They're like $30, something like that. But I really didn't want to put in red here, because then now that gets, I'm almost all 5 colors. So here was just 3 colors strictly. Green, white, blue. No black, even though I have the Mox Jet, and no red, even though I have the Mox Ruby. If I add, I have no City of Brasses, so actually, yeah, now that I consider this, adding that red would just make me have to switch up too much. I'll see. I don't really want to give up the plains. I may have to switch up the forest and the island. So the basic lands is a hedge against Blood Moon, which was a card that used to wreck me. I used to have, this version of the deck used to have only 1 plains as the only basic lands, and that was to keep mana open for a disenchant. But if you don't have the disenchant and the Blood Moon comes up, and then you get the disenchant after the fact, you're screwed. So I have been able to even play around the Blood Moons recently with this more recent versions, so I don't necessarily have to destroy it. And I've won games even with the Blood Moon out, so that's why I really don't want to mess around with my mana base. It's already very tight as it is. So yeah, maybe Wrath of God is still the best option there, and I just have to kind of time it better. Another one was Sandstorm. I think that's the name. Sandstorm. Let me see. Sandstorm, which was a card I really like in theory. I did put this previously. Sandstorm, all attacking creatures suffer 1 damage, right? It's an instant. It's just good against those Winnie decks, but it's just 1 point of damage, right? So it really is dependent on what kind of creatures they have. If it's Arabian Aggro, may have the lines. They'll definitely have the pixies, but they'll also have the Curd Apes, right? So that unless the Curd Ape is not pumped from forest, and it's just a 1/1, but so that Sandstorm may not be effective, right? So it's very situational. That's why the Wrath of God is just a bit more stronger, but I may just take a lot of damage as I'm waiting around. So, but I think I need something against either Arabian Aggro in particular, or just any Winnie deck in particular, right? So it could also be, I could face similar issues against White Weenie or Mono Black Weenie. And the Wrath of Gods, it may just be with the 2 white, that sometimes that is hard to cast. As you're seeing, most of my spells are just 1 colored mana spells. The only ones that don't have that are the two Ceras, and then the Brain Geyser. Everything else is just I need 1 mana of that color, and that's by design. I purposely strayed away from like maybe recall, things like that. Wait, although is recall 2 mana? I think it is. Oh, it's only 1 blue. My mistake. But in general, I stayed away from things that cost 2 colored mana. And this deck is pretty solid. As I mentioned, this is now a Swedish version of this deck. And I can no longer call it an Erlengeddon deck anymore. I would guess either I would call it Suchigeddon or Bantamgeddon, which that's the name I've been using a lot as well anyway, so may I just stick with Bantamgeddon. But I think that's my next dilemma to solve here. I added the extra disenchant in the sideboard. I used to have 4 divine offerings, but I need that extra disenchant because I do want to target more enchantments as well. Plus with the 3 divine offerings in addition, I think that's still a good amount. The 4 Armageddons total, 2 extra in the sideboard. I'll see if maybe I drop it just to 1 extra in the sideboard. Because sometimes when I added them, I didn't add all 4, I may just added 1 extra. So, and maybe 4 is pushing it as well. But that's the next dilemma for me to solve with this deck. And so here it is. Now this has the new Pixies, and I was mentioning that I'm putting in this more of the actual cards that I win from tournaments that are signed. I just see a lot of deck picks with them, and I always like that touch. Oh, this is the card I won. And I should have included this card in the swag stuff that I got. I got first place in the Swedish portion with this basically same deck from the same day that I played the 97 Worlds. So first place, I got this altered disenchant. Pretty solid. Right, so other altered cards here and there. Like this is from a Time Warp tournament, I believe. This one has the Time Warp Clubhouse stamp. So I've been adding more of those signed cards or altered cards that kind of just personalize my deck a bit more and just gives me more of the history of the games that I played since joining Old School Magic. Right, so that's the actual deck. So as I mentioned, that's the next puzzle to solve. How do I protect myself against Arabian aggro in particular, and just any similar weenie deck in general? It could also very well be I already have all the tools necessary. I just need to play more against it and be more mindful of what to do. Maybe be more passive initially. So it could be just a change in strategy that could also go hand in hand, or maybe just that could be very well enough for me to overcome that deck, at least be more likely to overcome it, right? Because I could always lose to any of these decks, and I could always win against any of these decks, right? So a lot of it is, of course, luck, the sideboard, but a lot of it is definitely the way I play. So we'll see. Initially, I do believe I do need something against it. Sitting in a bottle might be just the best one, because if I take all my dibs and I put those in, it won't affect me, if at all, or very much, and it pinpoints their creatures, or at least some of them, right? So not necessarily all of them, but a good chunk of them. I did see Erlems in that deck that I lost against. I think dibs as well, right? So honestly, yeah, maybe just might have to bite the bullet and buy those sitting in the bottles Hopefully I can get them damaged and as cheap as possible. But adding red seems like a tall order, and that may be the best way. And even though Cinnabatas don't protect against other weenie decks, it is such a prevalent deck in Swedish Arabian aggro. And in general, honestly, the Cinnabata is a staple sideboard card. Even a lot of decks might even put them in main deck. So I think that could be very well the option that I end up going with. But we shall see. A bit more place testing may be in order. But this is what I have to cover for today. Thank you guys for watching.